welcome to Athlantic, the show where an American and a Brit take turns crossing the pond to learn about sport culture in the UK and the USA. I'm Adam Jordan, your resident American.
And I'm Harry Collins, your resident Brit. Adam, we're in 2025 for the first time. Do you feel different? Do you feel special?
The way that you say that makes it sound like there may be more times that we're in 2025, and that's kind of alarming because it's been a bit of a roller coaster ride so far. So I don't know. We've got room to improve, but I'm feeling pretty good. It's a time of year where we're as dark as it gets, and
Sure.
We're just looking forward to spring. So.
Exactly. In London, it's very dark. The weather is rubbish. As you said, everyone's looking forward to spring. We as sports fans are obviously looking beyond spring. We discussed previously that we really love this time of year because we get to look all the way forward through the calendar year at the things that we're sort of most excited about in 2025, which posits the question, Adam, can you give us 2, 3, 4 things that you are most excited for on the sports calendar this year?
I'll split the difference, and I'll say exactly 3. So I'm gonna stick a little bit somewhat off the beaten path with these, although shocking because it's me. I'm going to put in 2 hockey in there, but they're important. So the first one coming up is actually in just less than a month as we're recording this, a brand new tournament called the Four Nations Face-Off. It is an international men's hockey tournament that is finally, for the first time since the 2016 World Cup of Hockey, we are getting a best-on-best NHL players representing their national teams in international hockey competition.
That's pretty cool.
It's really exciting, yeah. So like I said, we had a World Cup in 2016. NHL players haven't been in the Olympics in 2018 or 22. They're finally coming back next year in 26, so very happy about that. But for now, we get this Olympic appetizer in 2025, the Four Nations Face-Off. It's between Team Canada, Team USA, Team Sweden, and Team Finland. So very excited about that one. And then sticking with hockey, May 7th-ish, the start date hasn't been announced, but it'll be around then in that first week of May, the Walter Cup playoffs, which will be only the second ever PWHL Professional Women's Hockey League playoffs. The PWHL has been absolutely incredible to watch this year, just as it was in its first year.
Yes.
We finally have teams with actual brands and names and their own colors and logos, and it's awesome. There's just been incredibly high quality of play, and I can't wait for that again. Minnesota will be trying to defend its title. Minnesota Frost.
Awesome.
And then looking way down the line toward the end of the year, actually on my sister's birthday, happy birthday, Carly, on November 21st, the first test of the Ashes. Told you you converted me, so we are. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to see this for myself. I know I didn't actually get a chance because everything just got so busy this year. I didn't get a chance to watch the Ashes this past year. So this year, I'm digging in, setting the New Year's resolution in November. I'm getting my butt in front of a TV and watching the Ashes.
Amazing. Just a quick question on your first one. Who wins who won in the 2016 Hockey World Cup? Which nation is the? Is that a really stupid question? Am I putting my foot in it?
It's not a stupid question. I'm just so glad that you asked because it's another reason for me to brag on Sidney Crosby. Because Team Canada won, and I'd rather Team USA win, obviously. But Sidney Crosby was captaining that team, and that was just in the middle of an absolute generational run by him, winning the Stanley Cup that previous summer or that previous spring, then into the summer winning the World Cup of Hockey, and then the following year also winning the Stanley Cup again. Oh, amazing. By the way, winning the MVP of the playoffs in both 2016 and 17. So, anyway, I digress.
What a guy.
What about you, Harry? What do you have?
As you said, I want to avoid some of the obvious ones. At least for sort of typical the typical things that appear on the calendar time and time again. That said, actually, my first two I've realised do happen annually. The first one I would like to, on the 15th of February, watch my first Daytona 500. If nobody's listened to the NASCAR episode, which was one of our very first, Adam gave us a compelling and so well articulated brief on how NASCAR is so much more technical and interesting than most European fans would think it is. So I'm definitely going to try and sample at least some of that. I think it'll probably run well into the early morning on the 16th in the UK. So I'll catch what I can. Then almost exactly a month later, I'm actually more excited than we have been for a while for the beginning of this year's Formula One World Championship. Mostly because for the first time in almost a decade, some of the really big drivers will be moving around, and I can't wait to see what Lewis Hamilton looks like in a Ferrari. Hoping that he can steal that record 8th World Championship. But then finally, unfortunately, the English soccer fan comes out of me again. This year, the Lionesses have their opportunity to defend the European Championships. That starts in July. It's the first time in like 60 years that England will be defending an international football tournament. So it's going to be amazing to see how our women's team do in Switzerland. Because the WSL is in the best standard it's ever been. We're attracting talent from around the world. It feels like a really amazing point for women's football, and hopefully again this will be another catapult like the World Cup in Australia was, and like the last Euros was. We really hope that we can bring it home again.
What a great place for the Euros to be in Switzerland. Like that's
it's the most European thing.
Yeah, truly.
It's in the middle.
Yeah.
Nobody's complaining about flight times. It's easy.
Exactly. It feels like it should be there every year. It's neutral. It's perfect. And the only thing I'm very excited, very, very excited about your watching Daytona for the first time, as bleary-eyed as you may be. But I am very sad that your first time watching it will not be with me in person, but one day we will change that because
we will.
I can't wait to watch you watch NASCAR.
Amazing. We'll make that a special sort of episode 100. We'll go to a NASCAR race together.
Perfect.
We'll take the recording equipment. It'll be wicked. We'll just paint our bodies.
So, okay, actually, I'm going to go on a very, very quick tangent, but I promise I will keep it less than 1 minute. One of the really cool things about seeing a NASCAR race in person, which it's an experience, you should do it once. I don't personally feel the need to go a whole lot to go many more times and sit in the stands because frankly the clientele is difficult at times. Not trying to be pompous there, just it's some of the things that I've heard said in those stands are just uncomfortable.
Being pompous is my job.
Yeah, exactly. That's your job. But you actually do sit in the stands with a headset and listen to team communications. Like that is everybody does that. So
that's cool.
We would be okay with our equipment. Nobody would know.
Oh, we wouldn't stand out. I get it.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Okay, so allow me to make this sweeping transition into Harry. There's not going to be much to this. Harry, what are we talking about today? Because I hear that you've got an absolute banger of a sport on our hands this week.
So, thank you. Wow. Seamless, like butter. This week, we discussed what we wanted to get into, and Adam actually recommended something that I didn't really know all too much about. Of all of the sports that we've discussed, this is going to be the episode that I put the most research in, because this week we're going to be talking about rugby, which is a sport that I've probably played for a couple of 100 hours as a kid. I've seen it live once, I think, when I was very, very small. But over the last couple of weeks when I've been researching about it, I've just over and over again discovered this newfound respect and enjoyment for it, which is really perfect timing, because one of the other things on my calendar that I would like to watch this year is called the Six Nations. You mentioned the Four Nations. I was really worried you were actually going to step on my toes there, because I'm going to throw two more nations in there, and we get to watch the Six Nations, which is the European annual rugby tournament in the spring. So, if we're going to break down and talk about rugby, I would love to know, just Adam, where do you come to this conversation? With what experience? Do you know anything about rugby? What sort of exposure have you had to this pretty quintessentially British sport?
So I would say, boy, don't let the Kiwis hear that one. I would break it down into three different ways. So the first one was when I first watched rugby sevens in the Olympics, when it was first on the Olympic calendar in 2016 in Rio. I thought it was really, really fun to watch, and I actually went out and bought this at the store.
Yes.
It's very, very, very deflated now, but apparently
that's all right.
It says on here, air loss is normal, so... Anyway,
That's Tom Brady's favorite, that one.
Ooh, good pull there. Good pull. But yeah, so it's an Ireland one. So that's fun. The last time that I came to London, you took me through the lovely area of Richmond, and we looked at a scenic overlook, and off in the distance was Twickenham, or Twickenham Stadium. I don't know what it's called, but I know that it's in Twickenham. And that was really cool to see. And you were like, "Hey, that's the big rugby stadium." Okay, cool.
I can't believe you remember that. That was it. It's very cool. It's a beautiful vista. People from Richmond will know what I mean. And Twickenham sort of stands like a pillar to sport amongst the sort of suburbia there. Amazing. What's number three?
Well, Ted Lasso has looked upon Twickenham Stadium, is my understanding.
Of course.
And Coach Beard. Anyway, the third thing is that I was fortunate enough to go to the Olympics this past year in 2024 in Paris. And one of my tickets was to the gold medal matches, or really all the final matches for the women's rugby sevens. And so I got to see our wonderful queen, Ilona Maher, do her thing, win a bronze medal for the U.S. for the first time ever.
Yes.
And I got to watch it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So I don't know a ton. I've watched sevens, but that's about it.
Sure. All right. That I think especially with the success of the US Rugby Sevens team, and Ilona Maher, who has gone on to do Dancing with the Stars, and then made a huge big name signing to come over and play rugby in England. I think this is probably a year when a lot of American sports fans have probably discovered rugby properly for the first time, even though you've had a perfectly serviceable international team for a long time, which is interesting because typically Americans are really good at American sports, but when you play sports with the rest of the world, other than hockey, we tend to sort of kick your butts. But your men's rugby World Cup teams have been pretty strong in the last couple of iterations. Like when we talked about football, like when we talked about American football, rugby is another one of those sort of top of the tree where all of these sports come together, and it's another offshoot of that rough team sport with ball territory.
Caveman football.
Proto football. Caveman football is good. We'll use caveman football from now on. Now, so in the UK, a poll in 2023 pointed rugby to be Britain's second most followed sport. But the same poll didn't list it in the top 10 most played sports in the UK. So that's kind of typical of sort of a high impact sport, typically played by young people. We play it in school, boys and girls in school, and then obviously as you move further up, like football, casual participation really falls away, and we all sort of interact with rugby mostly through watching and through fandom.
When you say football, that you mean American football?
Yes, I was. Yeah. I mean,
casual participation in the UK is not falling off in world football.
Yeah,
so I'm not.
That is a very good point. So yeah, rugby is it's a fast-paced sport. At a passing glance, you think it shares a lot of similarities with American football. Firstly, it's played with the oval-shaped ball. The object is you try to score points by gaining territory, and in rugby you have to ground the ball, but in American football you simply have to cross the touchdown line. Very, very similar principles.
Which the terms really need to be reversed there. Like, we need to call our points scoring a try, and you guys need to call it a touchdown. It
touchdown. Yeah, it is precisely what it is. The fact that you can score a touchdown with barely touching anything, let alone anything having to go down, is remarkable to me. Also, and in both sports, the ball carriers can be tackled in ways that make soccer fans shriek. Now, there's a way of giving you the perfect encapsulation of what rugby is in modern sort of British sports culture. Goes back to it comes from a quote allegedly from the Chancellor of Cambridge University sometime in the 1890s.
Speaking of,
I've seen a couple. Yeah, exactly. I've seen a couple of people attribute this wrongly to Winston Churchill, who is the king of pompous. But this quote that sort of lives on and is the motto of a lot of teams is this: football is a gentleman's game played by hooligans, but rugby is a hooligan's game played by gentlemen. And what's really important about that, and something that we really need to frame this conversation with, is rugby is a brutal, violent, it's a sport where lots of people pick up injuries, there is bloodshed, there are broken bones, but it is always played with dignity and respect and discipline and sportsmanship above anything else. Please.
Question, Professor Harry.
Yes.
What do you mean by that? Like, when you say, like, maybe you were about to go into it, but like, it's played with dignity and sportsmanship. Like, what more so than other sports?
So, firstly, I'll say the Rugby Football Union. Now, that's a little bit confusing because it has the word football in there, but what we're talking about is rugby football. But that is the governing body of rugby in the UK, have 5 core values, and I'm sure you can find core values on other sports, but this is front and center, written on just about every bit of literature that they publish, and it's always teamwork, respect, enjoyment, discipline, and sportsmanship. In football, soccer, we have unfortunately a really hard time with things like diving. And faking fouls. In American football, I know it's better than most sports that there's often arguing with referees. In some sports there are often like heated exchanges. In rugby, obviously that all still happens, but all of the players are incredibly respectful, firstly of the referee. I believe it's the only sport where everybody calls the referee sir.
Huh.
Like your teacher when you were in the 3rd grade.
Huh.
And it's generally thought as though rugby players are carry themselves with more decorum, might be the best way of putting it. And we can sort of track this lineage of respect and dignity and sort of sportsmanship back to the roots of rugby. Now, allegedly, rugby was founded by a little boy called William Webb Ellis, who during a soccer match picked up the ball and just ran with it. Like nobody had ever thought of that before.
A very popular guy, I'm sure.
Exactly. And after he was bullied at the school that he went to, that school happened to be in the sort of Midlands town called Rugby, we had a new sport born. Now, if anyone can remember our FA Cup episode, which was the first episode we ever did way back in October, the FA Cup drew sort of posh, I say posh, sort of middle upper class schoolboys and northern industrial towns, drew them together. Now rugby kind of did the opposite. Starting again in this Midlands town of Rugby, very, very close to actually where I grew up. Rugby was immediately played by well-off and wealthy and middle-upper class people in the south. And then in the north, rugby started to be played by industrial mine workers and factory workers who all enjoyed rugby but couldn't afford to play it just as a hobby. So in the south, it was completely amateur, and you played it for the love of the game. And in the north, where it's less affluent, or it was less affluent, rugby was played by people who played it professionally. Now, these two groups didn't have a huge mutual respect, and actually the teams in the north who were professional actually started beating the teams in the south when they played. So the teams in the south evicted them from the league and banned them from playing, which is when the teams in the north formed what we now call as rugby league. Okay. And what's going to be really annoying is, now that we're going to have this conversation about rugby, we're going to be talking about two different sports. There is rugby union, which is played in the south of the UK predominantly, and is probably the most visible sport, the one that Rugby Sevens is based on, the one that the Six Nations is based on. And then there is Rugby League, which is predominantly played in the north of England, which has its own international series, has its own. I can see gears whirring, Adam.
So the wealthy, broadly speaking, and I know that we're painting with a very broad brush here, but broadly, the wealthy, more posh version of the game is the one that spread further. Probably, I would imagine, because there's more resources, more all sorts of. But that is so but those two kind of sides were playing each other kind of before the schism.
Precisely.
So were the rules the same? Was it like, other than one side's getting paid, one side's not getting paid? Like, I could see that being a big conflict. Was that the only difference? Like what's going on?
So initially it was the only difference.
Okay.
The teams in the north who were being paid to play because people would come and watch them, obviously then were able to do it as a career, and the teams in the south were typically played in their part-time, because these are the southern teams were filled with players who had other careers, so they were only training part-time and playing part-time. So when the rugby union, it sort of banned professional teams and professional players, then rugby league started in the north, and then after that, because rugby league were playing for it, to make profit, the rules started to be adapted in rugby league to make it easier to watch. Which is why, if I showed you two versions of rugby league and rugby union, Americans would, and this is I've seen a couple of studies saying that Americans empathize and enjoy rugby league far more because it's very, very similar to American football. It's quicker. There are less ambiguous rules. It scores slightly differently from rugby union. It's terrific how we've got these two sort of diverging sports that mean different things in different parts of the country. Of course, rugby league epitomizes sort of the hard work and the hardiness and the resilience of northern provincial towns. And then rugby union is I'm not sure they would use this word, but it's far closer in purity to the essence of the sport that was originally played in that Midlands town in Rugby by the little boy, what's his name, William Webb Ellis, who was probably bullied ruthlessly for starting this whole thing.
picked up the ball. He was like, the kid probably had no touch at all. He's probably like me. Trying to play.
Exactly.
And he's like, oh, screw it. I'm just going to pick it up and run. Like, what?
Exactly. So yeah. Now, one of the key differences, and this is something that I think really pulled it apart from American viewership, is in rugby league, tackles are uncontested. Because in rugby league, each team has 6 tackles to get the ball effectively into the touchdown zone over the try line. So
wait, I'm gonna need another explanation on that. So
sure,
they're uncontested. What do you mean? So if you have the ball, they can only tackle you 6 times?
Yes.
Wow.
If my team have the ball and your team tackle me, and a tackle is you bring me down so my elbow touches the ground or the ball touches the ground, or there's another one where I stay on the ground, I stay upright but I don't move. That's one tackle. Now after that's happened, the referee will blow his whistle, and your team will leave me alone, and I have to kick the ball back to my team. And now my team only have 5 tackles to manipulate the ball across the pitch. And as most people will probably know, the only thing they'll know about rugby, you can only pass the ball sideways or backwards. It cannot go forwards. You're going to manipulate the ball over the pitch. So it's an incredibly aesthetic, very pretty game where the ball is sort of always flowing and territory is moving forwards and side to side. But if my team get tackled 5 times and we haven't scored a try, that's your turns. Your teams go.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
So
which
is it possible to take possession of? I don't want to get too into the nitty gritty of like rules.
Yeah,
here.
No, we won't.
But like, is it possible to take possession from a tackle? Like, can you just like get the ball ever from one?
If I spill the ball, if my team has the ball and I spill it in a tackle, yes, that's far less common.
Got it.
Also, if I throw the ball, if I commit a foul, you can win the ball. If I throw the ball to my sideways or backwards and your team just happen to intercept it, that's fine. That's your ball.
Got it.
Now, in rugby union, tackles are contested, and this is where we deviate from sort of the American football looking game. Because if your team tackle me, I have to release the ball, but the ball stays on the ground. Now, my team will then come and physically try to possess the ball by covering it. And your team have the right to also try and cover the ball yourself and to regain the ball. Your bodies have to come over the ball to claim it, which is why if you tackled me in rugby union, a ruck would form where bodies sort of, it looks a little bit like a pylon, but it's very structured, and there's literal pushing, and my team will try and push your team off the ball,
Wow.
and then we recover the ball and we start again. So there's no sort of, in rugby league, we have this we have this down system. Basically, you get 6 downs like you do in American football. But in rugby union, no downs. It's all physical, it's all hard, and it's all, it's far more ambiguous and territorial and a little bit more primal. It's a little bit more hooligan-y, which goes back to that quote. It's a sort of barbaric game played by gentlemen who always call the referee sir, who always treat each other with respect, who always shake each other's hands. Everyone sort of looks after each other, even if you've just tackled me and you've smashed me into the ground and you've broken my rib. It's always, you're going to pick me up. There's that sort of camaraderie. It's almost moving when you see the sort of the level of respect that goes on in this game. So are you following?
I think so.
Are you with me there?
I think so.
Amazing. Yeah. They are excellent. It's an excellent game to watch. And as I said, that sort of possession thing, you have it in American football, but in American football, it really feels like often it's just about speed. It's about getting the ball to the other end as quickly as possible. In rugby, it's far more like water breaking on a shore. Finding the path of least resistance, but also knowing that it comes in waves, and it can be really mesmerizing to watch. But also, the backdrop to this is two slightly different sports with wildly different social connotations.
Yeah.
So that's rugby. Basically, in a nutshell.
Pretty cool.
Now, that's sort of how it exists in England specifically. As I mentioned, there are a plethora of international tournaments. We have
real quick, actually, before I want to go back real quick to like one more rules thing.
Sure.
You mentioned a ruck. Isn't there also
Yes.
like there's what I think the first time I ever heard about rugby in the most casual of ways, the only thing that I'd ever heard of is a scrum. What is that? I just know it's a bunch of people like lining up like a bunch of like rams like about to like butt heads and perilously suspended from the ground or from the air, by each other. So what is that?
The scrum is a device for restarting a game after like a misdemeanor foul has been committed. This is not this is a breach of the rules, but not like necessarily an intentional foul. So either to start a scrum, you've either had somebody's offside, there's a forward pass, something that's a little bit accidental maybe, or if that ruck we were talking about, if your team and my team pile 15 bodies over the ball, the referee's actually got no idea where the ball is and who owns the ball, so the referee will blow up and we'll have a scrum. Now, the scrum, in principle, if you think about American football, where you have two lines of scrimmage, and how many, just roughly, how many players would you have in that line of scrimmage?
You have to have a minimum of 5 on the line.
A minimum of 5, great. In a scrum, you would have 3 people at the front. So let's pretend we've got a scrimmage of 3, and then behind them another bank of players. And then behind them are maybe 1 or 2 more players. So we've got 8 people in our scrum. Now, in the line of scrimmage in American football, the ball starts in the middle, and then is it the center? Is that its name?
Yep.
The center snaps the ball back or passes the ball back to the quarterback, and the game begins. In a scrum, our 2 lines of scrimmage, let's say, come together and they bind. So your head goes next to my head. And there's another head here, and we're all interlocked like this. If anyone's watching, we're all
very
interlocked.
Intimate.
It's very intimate, and you're all ear to ear, and you can sort of hear and smell everyone. And then into this, the ball is rolled in by the team to whom the scrum has been awarded. The ball is rolled in right down the middle. So if you imagine whether in this scrum and all these legs are going backwards, there's this tunnel that we roll the ball into, and then it's my 8 guys versus your 8 guys, and we just push. And my team wants to push your guys out of the way, so that I, the hooker, who plays in the middle of the scrum, right in the middle, kicks the ball backwards, so we gain possession of the ball.
Wow.
But it is just 8 bodies versus 8 bodies pushing as hard as they can, and sometimes that's dangerous. When the scrum collapses, people get really hurt. When I played at school, I was a hooker because I was quite full-bodied but quite short, and I was quite good with my feet. Now, as the hooker, you're right in the middle. I know it's got an unfortunate name.
Sorry,
it's all right. We're all going to blame.
Also, your self-description of being full-bodied yet short.
Yeah, no, it's all right. I was full-bodied yet short. So yeah, the prostitute plays in the middle. And as the ball is rolled in, we all push. And it was my job to hook the ball back. However, like both of my arms are around my teammates.
Yeah.
So if
you have no
the scrum
control over your body.
If the scrum collapses, I can't do anything. Now my 2 props, that's what these 2 players are called, they have 1 free arm, and when they're not using it to slap the other prop, they're using it to steady themselves. So I have huge trust in that teamwork we talked about. One of those RFU sort of core values. I have huge trust in my props to keep the scrum up, because if it goes down, I'm breaking a collarbone, my face is going in the dirt, there's a ball there.
You could fall on fall on your neck. I mean,
yes, Rugby's a violent sport. Yeah. That happens. We probably have like a collapsed ruck once a game, and it's one of those where everyone picks each other up and they all sort of like, you good? The referee gets involved and makes sure. So yeah, that's the scrum. That is like core rugby, and it's incredible. You remember these guys are these men and women are putting so much. You know what torque is? If I talk about torque in a car,
no.
Torque is like how much
torque.
power.
Torque. Yes.
Torque is it
yes.
TOURQUE?
Yes. I know what torque is. Yes.
Yes. There's so much torque in a scrum. So much power, not much speed, but God, rugby teams can win tug of wars with racing cars, just such as that manner of that powerful body on body. What a hooliganistic primal contest that is.
Yeah.
That is rugby in its nutshell.
So now that we've got kind of the basics down here, what about kind of structure? I mean, I know that we've got two separate systems, league and union. What are and I use league in lowercase l here, lowercase l. I said lowercase l and then drew an uppercase l. Lowercase l. What is the league structure like on the men's side, on the women's side? Like, we talked about the referees, the players calling the referees sir. Well, is there, I imagine historically, as with most sports, there probably aren't too many women referees, probably more because of opportunity than anything else. But yeah, I'll let you take the floor back.
Both rugby league, capital L league, and rugby union have men's and women's tiers and divisions. It's well played. It's not as well watched as I think a lot of people think. Today is a Sunday. We had 4 football matches on in the top flight, and you could watch all of them. Watching rugby on the TV's a little bit harder. It's a little bit more obscure. Both men and women's have league structures that go from like the Premier Division down 6 tiers into sort of National League, which becomes sort of semi-professional. What's interesting is, as I mentioned, the deviation between league and union happened so early. Rugby league just got busy making it more watchable. So rugby league started a Rugby League World Cup, which includes a breadth of countries. Admittedly, like in our cricket episode, a lot of them are former Commonwealth or, unfortunately, former imperial countries. But it involves a lot of international teams. Rugby union, that more pompous, that little bit more pure to the original sport, only started its Rugby World Cup in the 1980s. Which is very late.
Yeah.
The FIFA World Cup started in the 30s. So it's really interesting that the Rugby World Cup came up so late. And then the Rugby Union World Cup is so much more watched. Unfortunately, Rugby League is probably the sport ethically that I align myself with a little bit more.
Yeah.
Easier to play, easier to watch. Also started from that more industrial, northern, less affluent areas. But rugby union is the team that is the game that we watch. This year's Women's Rugby World Cup, which starts, I'll just quickly check, starts in August. That's going to be union. Everyone's going to watch that. Ilona Maher has just joined the Bristol Bears. That's playing rugby union, the Six Nations, which is England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, France, and Italy. That spring international series that's coming up that I mentioned, that's going to be rugby union as well. And rugby union, men's and women's, are more watched and probably more played because we sort of start playing them in school. We start with rugby union at school.
Interesting. So it sounds like league is maybe more accessible, but perhaps I don't want to assume that it's in trouble, but perhaps struggles a little bit more with the broad appeal.
I think the Rugby League World Cup received less than 10% of the viewership of the Rugby Union World Cup.
Wow.
Despite it being 2 decades older.
Wow.
Yeah, but yeah, there is men and women's rugby that is watched and celebrated. Never more than this year. Obviously, viewership and participation in women's rugby is building, but is a long way behind men's. But a big driving force for a lot of the record shattered this year in women watching women's rugby is because of your own Ilona Maher, who joined the Bristol Bears, as I mentioned, to a record, multiple record audiences at Ashton Gate in Bristol. I don't think she's won yet, but it's swelling.
Yes. No, I am. So she is incredible. I could go on and on about Ilona Maher and how amazing I think she is. But I just have to point out yet another American, or really just international commodity, international star, international fill in the blank that you have stolen as British people.
Name two more.
I'll name 400 more, but
okay.
I don't know. Just raid the British Museum and everything.
Oh
is
no! Oh
stolen.
no! Oh my
so,
god! Sorry, I didn't. Oh my god! I thought we were. Oh god! Yeah, you're so right. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe not like stars. Okay. Yes. Fair. Like
Sure.
celebrities. Like we take yours. I get it. Sure.
You
but
take
like,
us.
and I don't
It's
want to.
okay.
I don't want to make the not saying Ilona
It's
Maher
fine.
is an item, but yeah.
We had Christian Pulisic for a while. That's
Okay,
that's fine.
Now the Italians have him, but anyway.
Exactly.
Still have Tim Weah. I don't know. Anyway.
So the big thing is, and Ilona Maher actually said this in an interview last week, that her 3-month contract with the Bristol Bears is preparing her for the Women's Rugby World Cup, where we will see Team USA, that bronze medal winning Rugby Sevens team, hopefully sort of metamorphosing in that chrysalis into a really competitive Rugby 15s team. And yeah, that's sort of what we have to look forward to in rugby, men's and women's. We've got the Six Nations in less than a month, and then in August we have the Women's Rugby World Cup. And this is it. If you're American, if you are new to the sport, this is a really, really good time to get into it. Every American I've ever met loves to tell me how they have roots in the United Kingdom. That is fine. Pick your roots, and that can be your team for the Six Nations. And I will let you say, "Oh, I'm Scottish," and just support Scotland. It'll be fine. And join in with the Six Nations. It's so much fun. And then we'll all band together, and we'll eventually get England versus America in the Women's Rugby World Cup at the end of the year.
Perfect. We gotta watch. We gotta have watch parties. We gotta have like separate and together watch parties. Like all of the British fan, all the fans of British things over here. I can lead into a watch party for the Rugby World Cup, and you can
100%.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. All right, new idea born live. How about that?
Yeah, incredible. Do you have any other questions about rugby? This second sort of quintessentially English. I know you said the thing about the Kiwis earlier on. It must be said. There's
the Kiwis, the Springboks. We've got all over the world. I mean, all right, in hot spots.
I'll do this quickly because I think rugby's special for the English, but not nearly as much as it is for the Kiwis and the South Africans. I would implore, and this is something that we're going to do as Athlantic continues. We're going to put together a little. I don't know how we'll distribute this, but we'll put together required reading. And in that required reading, we will have films and books and things that we think always send this incredible message. And when I was preparing for this podcast, I rewatched a film called Invictus. I don't know.
I remember when that came out. That is a movie that I have failed to see, and I need to add that to my.
It is
watch
on.
list.
It is Adam. It is on your required reading.
Excellent.
For our introduction to rugby course.
Okay.
It is about the 1987. I will quickly check that. The 1987 World Cup that was hosted in South Africa. It probably wasn't 87 because.
Was Matt Damon in that movie?
Matt Damon is in that movie. No, it was 1995, of course. 1987 was the first World Cup. It's about the 1995 World Cup that was hosted in South Africa after Nelson Mandela was released and apartheid ended.
Yep.
Now, obviously, please watch the film because it'll do a far better job than I'm about to. But the Springboks were always a symbol of white supremacy, effectively. It was always the Springboks in golden green were always a symbol of apartheid. At Springboks matches, they always sang the apartheid national anthem and flew apartheid flags. But with the globalization of the nation, with the World Cup, that changed. And spoiler alert, it's a sports movie. You know it's going to have a great ending. South Africa were not a very good rugby team, even a couple of years before 1995, and they ended up shock winning the whole tournament in this incredible symbol of unity in the nation. Now rugby in New Zealand I can speak less to because it's so much further away. But the All Blacks, the Kiwis, are just one of those incredible teams. I hate this word. I really hate the word aura. I think it's well overused in sports social media. But there are a couple of teams and a couple of athletes that I think have a natural aura where there is a almost a royalty, which I know again is also contentious, especially as an English person. But the All Blacks would certainly be a team with this incredible natural respect and a natural regal element. When the All Blacks take to a field, regardless who they're against, they are always the favourites. They perform the haka, which is a traditional war dance. It's this incredible intimidation ritual, and it's amazing. And to watch it, even on TV, I imagine in a stadium, it's incredible. Watching the All Blacks play is on my sports bucket list, which I'm sure will be a topic for a later podcast.
Yeah, and I also have to say there's a lot of different types of hakas too, I think, and I also know that it's an ultimate sign of respect too for the other team. Going back to what you were saying,
Fully.
one of the coolest things that I will never forget about seeing the Olympics and my whole experience with that was seeing the All Ferns, the women's team, win the gold medal. And you could tell, to your point, like just that aura of regality, and I don't know if that's a real word, but of the respect that all of the other teams, clearly had for that side in particular was absolutely incredible to watch. And they also performed a haka after the medal ceremony that was just chills.
That's cool.
It was really, really cool. So. Yeah, I would love to see the All Blacks do it as well, and see it on a true 15-on-15.
I would. I'd like to say just lastly, while we're paying our respects to New Zealand and South Africa, I'd like to quickly mention Australian rugby, the Australian national rugby team. No, exactly. No, we don't, because we went to Australia in 2003, and Johnny Wilkinson owns Australia. There is no respect for Australian rugby here. Atlantic covers our bit.
Athlantic does not acknowledge the existence of the island of Australia.
we have thought about, if Atlantic goes really well, we'll start a Pacific-based podcast called Pacific. But we still won't acknowledge Australia.
No, it won't happen. I will say, and this is an aside, and then we can wrap up here.
Sure.
There is a weird thing, it seems like, that I noticed in the Olympics this past year where, and I think a lot of it was because of the success that the Aussies had in the pool this year, especially compared to the Americans. There seems to be this really weird, like, little brother vibe happening with Australia. Like, they want to, like, have beef with us, and we just don't have it back. And I feel like I just actually, like, disproved that by going after them a little bit there. So
it's all right. We got to dangle something for them.
Yeah, we do. We need to give them something.
There's nothing here. There's nothing here for Australians. If you're listening, we don't need you. I'm joking, of course.
We love you, Australia.
Lots of my best friends are Australian, but
I desperately want to go.
I
mean, yeah, you live in, or you worked in Clapham. Like
I live I live and work in Little Australia, which is a tiny little corner of London that seems to have more Australians than bloody Canberra. But
and when I do eventually get to Australia, I will be incredibly excited and incredibly happy to meet as many Australians as I can. And that is that.
Exactly. That's nice. And on that respect, tying it all back together, one of those core rugby fundamentals, with that last note of respect, I would like to take us on to this week's sport math, Adam.
All right, let's do it.
If anyone remembers, I think last time you did a sport math for me, I managed to get a lot of the trivia right, but I got one little element wrong that meant my whole thing was off. And I've been stewing on that for the couple of weeks since we last recorded.
That's the thing with it.
Exactly.
If you miss one little detail, it can have cascading effects downstream.
So what I'm going to do is the following. This sport math, I've stopped being nice. I've stopped leaning into what you are good at.
Okay.
And I've chosen... You will need 4 bits of sports trivia for this. And it's very simple. I would like you to put the following in order.
Okay.
Highest number to lowest number.
Okay. Highest number. For some reason... Every time we do this, I forget to go and get the pad and paper that is over on the table. So So I'm on my phone again,
Your
not
fine.
cheating, not using the browser, just on the Notes app.
Because that rugby discipline
honor,
and the respect.
Yes.
That's something that we will conduct Athlantic with.
Yes.
Okay, number 1. Alan Shearer holds the all-time Premier League goal scored record.
Yes.
That number is one of the 4 that you will need to rank. That wasn't a very good way of putting that question, but it's fine. We're going to roll with it. That's the most obscure one, I think, for you.
Okay.
The second number. The number of FBS college football teams.
Okay.
Plus the number of MLB regular season games.
Okay.
You with me?
That's the second number.
That's the second number. The third number is Max Verstappen's 2024 points total. Yeah? That's a good sound, everyone. Ooh. Yeah. Are we there?
Oh yeah.
You got that written down?
I got it written down.
You don't need to know it yet. We'll get there.
Yeah.
And then your final number is, and this is in your wheelhouse, Gretzky's all-time career points scored.
All right. I know.
Oh, sorry. Keith Gretzky's all-time career points scored. Keith Gretzky. Would you like to tell everyone, because we did ice hockey very recently, would you like to tell everyone who Keith Gretzky is?
That is Wayne Gretzky's brother, who between him and Wayne Gretzky, they've got like 2,800 points between them.
And how many of those are Wayne Gretzky's points?
2,800 of them.
It's incredible. All right, so this is it. This is the hardest sports math you've ever had to face so far.
Oh, boy. Well, oh, God. All right. Keith Gretzky is definitely going to be at the bottom. I'm going to say, I forget. I think he has like 10 points or something. It's like 10 or 11. So we're going to start there. I know for a fact, if I get this number exact, you owe me money or something.
If you get any of them correct, I'll send you a little bit more respect than I sent to the Australian rugby team.
Oh, well, boy.
Not
bars through the floor there. Keith Gretzky's points scored. I'm going to say he had 11. Max Verstappen in my phone, you can't see it from here, but typing Verstappen auto-corrected to overstepped. So it's Max overstepped 2024.
With regards to the rules, he often overstepped.
Often.
We'll talk about that later on.
Track limits? I don't know. I guess it's not track limits that are his issue. Anyway, Max's 2024 points total. I know it was a lot lower than last year's, but it was still a lot. It was in the 300s.
I would just like to say, I've checked it. What is OHL?
The Ontario Hockey League. It's a junior league.
Great.
So it's not like an NHL thing.
Okay. Did he play in NHL?
Keith Gretzky?
Yeah.
I think he did, but I don't know if he...
My points total is from the OHL. I've only just checked that. And with that said, I will take that one out. You only need to do 3, and we'll talk about Keith Gretzky later on.
Yeah, okay. Okay, number of FBS CFB teams, that is 136, I think. It's either 136 or 134, and I'm going to be mad if I get it wrong. I think it's 136.
Okay.
Number of MLB regular season games, that's 162. So that will be 298. Yep. Okay, so... And Alan Shearer's goals in the Premier League. Whew.
It's tough.
I gotta really be honest. I think because I've seen this number before, so I think I know the ballpark.
Uh-huh.
I want to say this number is in the 300s. I think it is, but I think that you're going to do something kind of evil here and put it between Verstappen and the other number. So I'm going to just guess that he had 322 career goals. Okay. That may be, and here's the thing. My knowledge of the sport of football is one that is more so based on like general team dynamics and things.
Sure.
I don't really know much about individual players or what makes a player like good. And that's part of what I want to learn here on Athlantic.
That is what I'm for.
Exactly. So that said, the number of goals that somebody scored, I don't even know how to put that into context. I feel like it's either like 300 or 500, but I'm pretty sure it's not 500 because I think the 500 numbers is like the record for matches played. So I'm going to go in the 300s.
All
right. So final answer, Max Verstappen on top. I'm going to say he had like 336. I think that might be a little bit high, but that's what I'm going to say. Alan Shearer goals, I'm going to say 322 at number 2. And then number of FBS and plus MLB, CFB teams plus MLB regular season games, I'm going to say 298 at the bottom.
Okay.
Hit me where it hurts, Harry.
Adam, you have not got... You got Max Verstappen is the highest number. You've smashed that.
Yes.
The number of FBS teams, you said 136?
I did.
It's 134.
Oh, I knew it was one of those two. Dang it.
And MLB regular season games, you were spot on, is 162. So that total comes to 296.
Okay.
However, Alan Shearer, you're right. The 500 number is a really good long Premier League appearances. Unfortunately, Alan Shearer only ever scored 283 goals in his entire career.
Lame.
And 260 of those set the record in the Premier League. Wow. So it is a little bit lower than you thought. Wow. It's interesting how that stat is framed in that way.
Clearly, Alan Shearer wasn't very good.
You said 336 points for Max Verstappen.
I did.
Robbing him of 100 points. He scored 437 points.
Oh my God. That was
terrible.
terrible.
He ran away with it. He ran away with it at the end of the year.
He did, but
now,
wow. Okay, wow.
the Keith Gretzky number, he scored 335 points in the OHL, which is cute. You know, a fraction of what his brother did in the proper league.
Yep.
But that's that. I think I like Verstappen, overstepped the mark slightly. Some of those were cruel, and I really fear your retribution in our next episode. But I have had an absolute blast talking rugby with you. The next time you come to London, we'll do one better than seeing Twickenham. We'll see the inside of Twickenham, and we'll try and catch an international match.
Yes.
Or we'll head up north and we'll watch a rugby league match.
Yes, let's do it.
But yeah, I have really enjoyed today's episode. I really look forward to what we're going to discuss next week. Unless you have any parting wisdom or cursing for that sport math question, Adam.
I'm just gonna leave. I'm not gonna say anything about that sport math question. I'm just gonna say wait. That's all I have to say.
All right. I'm gonna revise everything.
Well, this has been great. Remember to please subscribe to us on YouTube. Drop a like on this video. Please drop a comment too. We would love to interact more. We'd love to take questions. We'd love to add some more of your feedback into the show. And please do the same on Spotify. Leave a rating, leave a review, leave a suggestion, a comment. We'd be more than happy to hear it. We're posting more of our short form videos on YouTube Shorts now. That we're starting to lay that in, because obviously who knows what's going on with TikTok in this country. Who knows what's happening with any social media, and we may just all be under the control of a few rich people. But anyway,
exactly.
It'll
be on all of them.
Rather than dealing with that uncomfortable thought, I'm just gonna encourage you. If you don't live in the U.S., please follow us on TikTok. Harry will keep making videos. I'll send videos over to Harry to post on there.
Yeah.
And subscribe to us everywhere else. But other than that,
amazing.
That's all I got. So thanks for a great episode, Harry. Thanks for helping us all understand rugby. And until next time.
Amazing, Adam. Until next time. Thank you very much, guys.